I we are the local board for USDB. As a board member, I represent District 4, which is North Salt Lake and South Davis County. Um, the other board
It's a
members who are
good thing
here would
my OBS definitely connected to the stream for a second, and now
someone needs to mute.
Just try to set your OBS up like you would.
All right, I see member Longacre here. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Happy to be here. I am Erin Longacre. I represent District 7, and it's Draper, Sandy, and Cottonwood Heights.
Thank you, member Davis.
Good morning, Cindy Davis. I represent District 11, which is the northern part of Utah County and the southern part of Salt Lake County. And I'm happy to be here talking about kids all over the state. Thanks, Chairwood.
Thank you, member Brinton.
Good morning. I'm member Brinton and I represent Southern Utah, but also USDB kids all over the state. Happy to be here this morning.
And I am not seeing member Booth. If you are here, call out because I'm not seeing you. All right, not seeing member Booth. We should see him soon, I'm sure. Okay, thank you. We are going to move to public comment. We have one comment this morning from Sarah Williams from the Disability Law Center. Sarah, go ahead.
Hi, good morning, board members. My name is Sarah Williams. I'm an attorney at the Disability Law Center, and like always, I'm going to talk fast. But thank you for listening to stakeholders and for taking action on language and communication plans today. I want to focus my brief comments on some questions I've gotten as to whether a language and communication plan, or I'll call them LCPs, are duplicative of the IEP process. And it's a good question. The answer is no. An IEP focuses on ensuring a student is making appropriate educational progress in accordance with the IDEA, or Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. An LCP strengthens and builds on that by incorporating the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which asks whether students have equal opportunity, full participation, and communication that is as effective as their peers. So although the IDEA and the ADA do overlap in some areas, there are important differences and considerations the ADA brings, and of course schools must comply with both laws. So districts that participate in an LCP pilot program are prioritizing critical conversations that the IEP doesn't always prompt, such as safety and emergencies, communication with family members, independence and self-advocacy with hearing technology, access during the entire school day, and more. In addition, LCPs are built for collaboration, which I really love. The IEP team includes many professionals, audiologists, teachers of the deaf, interpreters, SLPs, teachers and parents, and each of them see the student at different times of the day, all playing a very important role in language development. But because the IEP is organized by service and goal, that work can become siloed. And an LCP reframes the process. It starts with a narrow objective, effective language and communication access, and is formatted to bring the team members and their data pieces together for efficient, productive, and collaborative discussion. I also just want to say, I would ask that you ensure that LCPs are also piloted by 504 teams. These 504 plans have a lot less structure than IEPs, and those kids still need those same conversations and action plans to achieve access. I've seen many a deaf student exited prematurely from an IEP and left without the supports they need. So in closing, as you serve in this committee, remember those deaf children on USDB campuses, and also remember those ones going to schools in the regions that you represent across the state. Language is not just the foundation of learning, but really of human connection. And I know that as these plans move across the state, even to those most remote corners of Utah, they can change the lives of those children who are so often isolated in their communities. And we know that that biggest impact comes from that dedicated parent, teacher, and those service providers who are our IEP and 504 teams. So thank you for helping empower them to help their kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate you being here today. Our next item I'm super excited about. We have invited students to come and share with us some of the activities that they've been participating as they ended. Oh, I see that Member Booth is here. Before I move over, Member Booth, do you want to introduce yourself? And then we'll move on to our student enrichment activities.
Good morning. I'm Randy Booth, representing District 13, and I'm very happy to be here today and looking forward to our students that are going to share with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, now we will move to Superintendent Nelson. I'll have you introduce who's speaking and turn the time over to you.
Yeah, good morning, Sherwood. I'm Darren Nielsen, Superintendent of the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind, and this is an agenda item I'm looking forward to as well. Been ongoing discussion about our enrichment funding source, the permanent trust fund funds, and our advisory council certainly spends a lot of time working on preparing budgets, and we'll talk later in today's meeting about next year's budget related to enrichment funds. But we're so excited to have some of our students who have participated in a number of enrichment activities, and without any further time for me, we'll start with our Schools for the Deaf. And so Dr. Michelle Tanner will have you introduce our guests, and then at the conclusion of their presentation, Susan Patton, our students from the Schools for the Blind, will introduce the parents and students who are participating today on their behalf. Thank you.
Good morning. It is my pleasure to introduce some of our students. I'm going to introduce Maxine Katz, who is a recent graduate who graduated just this recent May 26th, and she's off in New York. And her mother, Jody Katz, is joining with her. And then we will also have Kelsey Ensign, who is a current student at our school, and both of them have attended JMS. And her mother, Lisa Ensign, will also be joining us, and she can jump on as well. And I'm going to turn the time over to them because the time we want to spend is the time on them. So I will go off screen. Go ahead. And I believe Elisa has a slideshow that the group is using. So let's have that shared. Excellent. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Maxine Katz. My sign name is this, and I am here to present about the New York trip and our trip to Japan. We just went to the International Studies trip to Japan. It was last year in 2025. And my experience, it was so fun learning the culture. And I learned we went to Tokyo. And in Tokyo, there was a lot of really historic buildings, a lot of things that they would say were bad luck. Like if you jumped on over this one line, it was good luck. But then if you jumped this other way, people would die. It was very interesting. And do you see that picture with the red pagoda there? So that is like in the morning, you see the water level go down, and then in the afternoon, the tide rises. So that's that. And then below there, you see a picture of an old pagoda, like it was from ancient times, kind of. There was a war that bombed it, and a lot of people died. It was destroyed. It burned their skin. It was a very sad story historically from the war. And my friends and my group, we had such a great time enjoying each other. We actually dressed in kimonos and took some cute pictures there. And we just went to, it was like a deaf restaurant, ramen restaurant. And we ate there, and you can see that there's the sign, thank you, is like this. And we went on the bullet train, and this is the sign for that. And that was really fun to learn those things. That's all I wanted to say. Oh, yeah. And then now is New York. Now in New York, we went to New York this past few months ago, and we went to the Empire State Building. I learned that building, the people who worked on that building, they didn't use like safety harnesses at all. They just walked around on the beams. That was interesting, so dangerous, but amazing. Yeah. And we also went to a pizza place, and it was a very famous spider. There, a Spider-Man movie was filmed there, and we learned that how to be independent, walk around in the city. We went to Central Park and had to navigate our way around there. And we would meet, like we would find a place on the map and then have to meet back. It was really fun. And we went on the subway. It was fun. We went to museums, and the Empire State was so beautiful. It was just such a fun trip.
I just want to quickly add, Maxine will be attending Rochester's Institute for Technology in New York, a top university in the country. And it's completely because of these experiences that she's been able to have independently. She can travel by herself. As she said, she led a group of students in Central Park. So we are so grateful for these experiences, even more than her academic experiences at USDB. These extracurricular experiences in the deaf community were pivotal. So thank you all.
Just
Could we put Elisa Ensign large on the screen, please?
thank you, Michelle. I didn't realize I was muted. Or you can even just leave it in gallery view would be great. And that way people can see the interpreter as well. If you do this view, then they won't. So. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Kelsey Ensign, and I am here to share about my experiences going to New York. But I've had many opportunities with USDB enrichment program. We did recently visit New York, and I had so much fun. I was able to learn so many different life skills and have great experiences in New York. And there's one really odd situation that happened. I had to learn how to be safe. If someone approaches you, then you need to kind of back up a little bit. That was the first time for me to have that kind of experiences. When we went shopping, for example, there was a man who kept like shoving something at me, and they were AirPods, and he wanted me to, I guess, buy the AirPods, and he was trying to scam me. Like he kept putting them in my face, trying to force me to pay for these AirPods. But it's ridiculous because I'm deaf and I would never use AirPods anyway. But anyway. So it was quite an experience. It would have been so easy for me to get scammed in New York, and it was very good for me to learn how to be on alert for that kind of thing. I really enjoyed learning how to navigate through the subway system. It's very different from here in Salt Lake City. We had to walk a lot through the subway to get where we needed to go. And honestly, if go to New York again, I think I could actually navigate through the subway system myself in New York. Yeah. And during that trip, I really loved that our whole group signed the whole time. Every day, all day. If I had a question about what we were seeing, I could ask and they could help me. I was able to learn a lot about historical things like the Empire State Building, how that was constructed, the artwork, and learned some expanded information about that. And also I was able to learn some of my family history because we went to Ellis Island and my family was immigrants. And to be able to see so many of my friends on that from the international trip and be able to, see them come home and learn about their experiences and whatever, I really hope that in the future I'm able to go on an international trip as well. On the trip with our guide used sign and was deaf. And that was so important to me to have that sense of connection. In New York, my group made a decision to bring 100 clothespins with us. And all week long, we were trying to put those clothespins on as many things as we could without anyone realizing it. And sometimes they wouldn't realize it for like an hour and there's a clothespin hanging on them. So, and there's a picture of that you can see so many times where we just put a clothespin on someone's jacket or on their pants or whatever, on their shoes or in their hair. On the trip, that program really helped me to be able to learn what my interests are, what maybe I want to do for a career in the future. And also, it helped me to really develop those skills for the world. Thank you so much for your support. And if we could spotlight the interpreter instead of them at this point.
Yeah, gallery view would be really appreciated.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm here to express my gratitude for the opportunities that my child Kelsey's had to participate in USD enrichment program. I'm grateful for her recent trip to New York. She came home from New York with a greater understanding of our country's history and with a greater compassion for the people around her and with confidence that she can be an independent adult in the world and she can go anywhere she wants to go. I hope today I can take a few minutes to express why I feel like the enrichment program is so critical for each deaf and hard of hearing child. And I ask for continued support, especially for international trips in the future. Deafness significantly limits access to incidental learning. 90% of childhood learning happens through incidental learning. This lack of access creates critical gaps in vocabulary, social cues, and in general knowledge. USDB's enrichment program is a critical specialized support to help students overcome gaps missed in their everyday life. These enrichment programs directly teach communication skills, language, and provide tools that their hearing peers would get in just everyday listening in the environments around them. While on trips, while they are fun, that is not the main goal. They're led by leaders rooted in deaf education and American Sign Language. Trips are based in learning. They must learn how to communicate with strangers, travel in unknown areas. They have to manage their finances. They have to learn how to manage conflict among their peers and out in the real world. Every minute of every day is full of intentional learning to fill the gaps of knowledge, social cues, and language missed due to their deafness. Kelsey's participated in many enrichment opportunities over the years, and these have allowed her to develop new skills and new interests, things that she maybe knew little about or that she didn't think that she could be good at. And she's learned that she can do great things through the enrichment program. As a deaf child and as a parent of a deaf child, I've seen that there's often very limited access in local community programs for learning these life skills. Hearing peers can sign up for sports programs, art classes, swim lessons, dance lessons, summer camps, but deaf children are turned away and told that they can't come due to costs or other reasons. These programs are critical for their hearing peers. They learn how to develop skills like teamwork, communication, patience, turn taking, and how to overcome challenges. So as a parent, I've had to rely heavily on the USD enrichment program for my child to learn these skills because she does not have access in our local community. I hope that Kelsey will get to continue to participate in the enrichment program, and especially that she'll get to go on an international trip. I have watched as her peers over the years have gone on these trips, and I have seen student after student share how those trips have been the most impactful on their lives, that they've developed the tools that they need and the confidence that they need to step into adulthood. If you attended our graduation this year, you would have heard every student that went to Japan talk about Japan and the impact of their lives. In an elementary school science lesson, a student would learn that a plant would need multiple things in order to grow. So they must have sun, water, air, and soil. Without one of these, a plant wouldn't be able to thrive. For a deaf child, specialized instruction is critical to their learning. We could compare that to water. Enrichment programming is equally as important. I see it as the sun. Without it, my child could not grow. She needs both water and sun. She needs specialized academic instruction and support through the enrichment program. These are both equally critical. I'm grateful that USD has provided this specialized support to my child throughout the years. The classroom is where Kelsey has been given the tools and been taught that she can do anything. But participating in the enrichment programs is where she's had real world experiences and she has realized I can do anything. So please continue to support the enrichment programs, continue to support trips and international trips for deaf students. If possible, look at being able to make these opportunities a part as operational funds, because these opportunities are as equally important as all specialized instruction. Thank you.
Okay, this is Susan. Michelle, is it my turn or do we have anybody else? I just don't want to cut anybody off.
Yep. Oh, I just assumed you knew. It's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, again, we are so excited to be here. I appreciated hearing the School for the Deaf and their enrichment activities. We know how important these enrichment activities are, and a variety of activities. Today, we have the opportunity for the School for the Blind to give you a recap or the impact of one of those really special activities, and that is this. It's called the 7048. I'll just quickly explain what the 7048 is, and then I'll introduce the students, and we have a couple of parents here, and then they will talk about the impact that this race had on them, and how they benefited from it. So the 7048 boat race takes place near Seattle, Washington. And it is every competitor in the race has to be man-powered or human-powered. So they either have to row. We saw some that were actually kind of pedaling the boats, but they have to row 70 miles within 48 hours nonstop. So our students, the race starts on Friday. It started Friday, May 29th at 7 p.m. And then all competitors have to be finished by Sunday, this year, May 31st at 7 p.m. Our students happened to come in, not happened, it was very, very much intentional, come in 21st, they came in 21 hours. So 21 hours out of the 48 hours. They also came in number 46 out of around 140 teams. So we were extremely proud of that, but that's not what we were most proud of. We're mostly proud of their endurance and how long it took them and how long they trained for this. They have been training for this endeavor for almost 2 years. And that's what we're proud of. We're proud of the grit that they showed. And we're proud of the parents who were so supportive of them as well. So with that short introduction, I'm going to introduce you to, we'll have McLean Rhodes talk briefly about the impact on him. And then we'll have Kalinka Brown, and she is with her mom, Shannon Brown. And then we'll have Isaac Morrison, and he is with his caregiver, Sarah. And then we'll have Megan Stott, and everybody will be brief. And Megan actually is a mom of Caitlin Stott, who was a student of ours on the boat. But Megan was also a chaperone on the boat, and she is also a TVI, a teacher of the visually impaired for Davis District. So we're excited to have these. So Mac, we will give the time to you, and you can talk about the impact that this race had on you.
Okay, I'm McLean Rhodes, and some of the impacts that this race had on me, it taught me how to work hard and push through stuff even when you don't know if you can make it. And it's a lot of teamwork too, because if you're not all like paddling in sync, you're not going anywhere. So another thing is that I learned that I can do really hard things. This race was a long time on the water and a little stressful because there were sometimes big waves. And yeah, it was a great race.
Mac, really quick, what did you like about the race? What was your favorite thing about the race?
I liked that we all did it together and we set tons of records this year, and that we didn't have anybody have to leave the boat this year, which is the first time nobody's had to leave the boat. So
Great. Thanks so much, Mac. Appreciate that. All right, now Kalinka.
Sorry, that took me a minute to find our buttons, but here's Kalinka's take. All right. Hi, so I'm Kalinka Brown, and I appreciate that I have gotten asked about this rowing trip. And so this is what I think of it. The race went overall very well. First came the preparation. We would go on the Utah Lake to practice for a few overnight rows on some Saturdays for about 7 hours. Everyone did their part in rowing the boat, and shout out to the staff for pulling this together. Packing for this race was a whole other story. We had these cool dry bags that had to be packed in a specific way so nothing would get left behind. I love that we had a meeting with Carrie to help and make sure everything was packed for the race in our dry bags. I felt super ready and supported throughout the whole race. Race day came up on us quite quickly. The purpose of this race was to row 70 miles in 48 hours, but lo and behold, our team did it in under 21 hours. The breaks were much needed throughout the night. We had fun music, and we were considered the party boat. Our team also helped a capsize boat team to shore. By mile 65, I was feeling nauseous, but I kept going for our team. While on the water, I felt safe and peaceful. The sense of accomplishment was crazy. I can't believe we did that. Things I will take and use in my own life are keep going through the whole task, even the cleaning up part. I learned stop and help others and be selfless. I will always cheer for whoever I encounter. So I would just like to say thank you for everyone who helped make this possible. It's your turn. Would you like parents to give our little input and then go on to our next?
Sure, that would be great.
Okay, so as a parent, I saw, from the beginning,
the big undertaking that this commitment was. And I watched Kalinka as, you know, they had their trainings and it wasn't always easy. It took a lot of energy. It wasn't always convenient. The open paddles, the gym time, the overnight rows. But in this process, I saw her grow so much in her teamwork. But I also saw her understand the importance of following through on making a commitment, that once you commit, you follow through to the end. I saw her develop team relationships, all working toward the same goal. I was really impressed with all the planning. The communication with us as parents was top notch. We knew what was going on, and it could not have been any better in the organization. And this gave us a lot of confidence as we set our kids off on this adventure. So as I saw her and her team kind of push away from the dock, I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be quite the adventure. And then I saw them rowing away at the sound of the horn, and I saw them rowing as a team and in unison. And I thought, they've got this. They only have 70 miles to go. So they were looking good. Later, we saw them down the course, and they continued to be rowing in unison and making progress. And it was fun to see them at different spots along the way that we could cheer them on and see how they were going. It was also really nice that the communication through the night letting us know that they were okay, that they were warm, that they were doing well. When we spotted them come across the open waters to the finish line, just the sense of just being so proud of the team for all the work through the night and all the preparation that they put in to get to this point was just really quite an accomplishment. And seeing their faces and all the cheering once they made land was an incredible, opportunity to see them experience. I think that these are the experiences that the kids have a sense of accomplishment that they can get no other way other than doing it. And to see this team and their strength and their working together to accomplish this was really quite something. So some of the things that I think Kalinka will use throughout her future is just seeing big tasks and breaking it down into small parts. Not being overwhelmed in the big picture, but being able to break it down into the smaller points that are doable and feel achievable. And then eventually you've tackled the big things. I hope that this race gives all of the students a sense of importance in knowing that when they make a commitment to follow through, and when it gets hard, that they have team members that can pull them through as well. And that they have others who are counting on them. And last, I think that I hope that all of the kids who participated in this race just have a sense of confidence that they can do hard things. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who made this adventure possible in all the different roles that they took, and just all the positive benefits that come from these kinds of activities. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Shannon and Kalinka. Now we'll hear from Isaac and Sarah.
Okay. Scoot over. Okay. I don't know. So on the trip, it was something that is something very unique. Like, so when Alex first mentioned it, I didn't really fully understand what it was, because I don't really go rowing. Like, this is not a thing I do. So on it, so I thought it was gonna be a lot easier than it was. Even during the practices, I don't think it fully encapsulates like how hard it is. I think the first overnight, kind of, but still, even then. So on the actual trip, it was hard. I got really tired. we did have power naps, but we didn't actually, since we were on such a great pace and we had such great weather, we didn't really sleep at all. So I think I only slept for like 45 minutes total out of the 21 hours. But I think that doing that taught me that, like, to do anything, you have to take advantage of your conditions. That, like, when things are good, you can't just take a break. You have to continue on, maintain the momentum. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I'm Jake, not Sarah. She, doesn't do public speaking, but first I want to say thanks to Alex and the whole team that spent the time, volunteered, and helped these kids. I think we've kind of just got involved with this type of stuff in the last couple of years. Seeing things like this I think is a phenomenal opportunity for these kids to build their confidence, build their abilities as they get older. The communication that Alex provided couldn't have been any better. We knew everything from the practices to the, basically to the end of the race in Washington. He always was communicating with us, letting us know what's going on, where they're at, what the kids are doing, how they're doing, their abilities, and, everything that they've done. I think this has really helped Isaac build his confidence, helped his, just realizing he can do hard things no matter what gets in front of him. That's kind of about it.
Thank you so much. I apologize, Jake. I saw Sarah's iPhone and I should not have assumed. My fault. Thank you. And then very last, we'll just hear a little bit from Megan Stott again, who is a mom and was a chaperone and also a TVI.
Sorry, my video is not coming up. There it is. Thanks, Susan, for letting me have a chance to speak today. In fact, Caitlin wishes she was here. I just sent her off to girls' camp where they are starting by floating the Provo River. And she joked that she has spent enough time in a boat, but is going to go and hang out on a boat for a little bit longer. As Susan said, I had the unique privilege of being a mom as well as a teacher on this trip. And so my thoughts are geared towards that unique perspective. First, I just want to say that one of the things that I loved about 7048 is that it's hard. And it's hard for everyone who competes. And it isn't just hard because the students have visual impairments. In fact, once the students are in the boat with our skipper, their visual impairment is no longer a factor. 70 miles is long and grueling, and pushing to the end of the race is a physical, mental, and emotional challenge. When you finish something hard, there's a mind shift that permeates to other areas of your life. It tells you that you can do hard things because I've done it before. At about 40 miles in the race becomes a mental game, and learning that you have the ability to push through is immensely empowering. The other reason I think that 7048 is such an amazing opportunity is our students rarely get the opportunity to compete in a competition of physical endurance where the stakes are even. During 7048, the stakes are even. They spent 18 months training to get their bodies in shape enough to endure the paddling for 20 plus hours. The other thing that they learn from this is they compete as a team. Team experiences are so important for all students of all ages and all abilities. In a team setting, you learn to rely on others' strengths as well as adapt to others' weaknesses. Team sports foster social connectedness and build emotional resilience. When they were tired, their teammates had their backs, and when they were strong, they paddled so someone else could rest. I just couldn't think of a better metaphor of life as they enter other team situations. things like work, friendships, and family relationships. As I've been thinking about presenting today, I was also thinking about why do we spend all the money to travel all the way up to Washington to compete in this race? Couldn't we accomplish the same thing here on one of our local lakes? And here are my thoughts on why participating in something like 7048 is uniquely important. First of all, it's broadly recognized. There's a thrill that comes from sitting at a starting line with 140 plus other vessels, all attempting to accomplish the same goal. Also, it's a competition. Students need to compete. Looking at our tracker at like 3 a.m. and seeing that we had passed 2 other vessels and that there were other vessels just ahead of us if we could just dig a little deeper and give a little bit more. These students were really unique in that they had set a goal for themselves to finish by Saturday. And I think as chaperones on the boat, we were trying to give them some reality that there are things that are out of our control. But they were prepared and they were ready and they met the goal. So as our students have said before, we made it in less than 21 hours, which is a huge accomplishment. And I think it was even a better opportunity because it was something that others were competing for as well. And they were like other people were competing for the same goal. And lastly, I think 7048 is amazing because of the travel experience. Travel teaches so many organic skills that can't just be taught in the classroom. So our students encountered things like, how do you handle a TSA agent who thinks you are more or less capable than you are? How do you confidently use pre-boarding when confronted by angry first-class passengers who think it's unfair that you need extra time to board a plane? How do you map out a route to the nearest ice cream joint? And how do you guide your friends safely there and back? How do you manage rooming with teammates? Or for that matter, waking up on time for breakfast? Traveling comes with all of its own skills, and it encompasses so many areas of the ECC, and I'm so grateful for it. I just want to say that I have learned so many lessons from 7048. I am grateful that I got to compete. It will be an experience I will cherish for the rest of my life. Doing something this hard and this amazing together with my daughter was so fulfilling. I just want to thank you guys for allowing us to participate, and I really believe that these types of adventures change lives.
Thanks so much, Megan. Appreciate that. As you can see, this was a very impactful trip, and I'm so grateful that the Standing Committee Board has seen the need to hear from students. I think it's very impactful. I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to our staff and those who organized it. They truly went above and beyond what actually was necessary and made things run so smoothly. So with that, Chair, I will turn the time back over to you. And again, thank you for everybody that came and talked about it.
Thank you so much. I'm just so impressed with all of our students for their ability to present and to go through the things that they did. They are examples to all of us. I'd like to open it up to staff or to our board members. Do you have any questions or comments you'd like to make before we move on? I think we need to celebrate these students a little bit before we just move into business, if anyone would like to do so.
I think we all do. So if I can go first.
Yes.
I am just in awe, of these stories. These kids or these students have so much talent and perseverance. And I think that there is a strong lesson to be learned in their endeavors. And I'm grateful for this program so they can have these experiences. And I just appreciate you guys sharing them. Keep going. Good job.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Member Davis.
I'm going to call out my son, but was heading into high school and said, I will never go to a big city and I will never go to New York City. He had this irrational fear that he was going to get kidnapped. I think from watching Home Alone 2 when he was tiny. And so as a mom, I said, he's going to New York City. And we made that happen with a special group and then a school group. And I just want to say to all the students who were willing and who were brave to go to these places and to learn new skills, I think it's just fabulous. It's a great experience for all students. Thank you.
All right. I am not seeing any other hands, so I think we're going to finish this item. Again, thank you, students, for coming. Thank you so much for sharing your stories, for your experiences, and for teaching us about learning to do hard things. I think we all need to learn that lesson. And collaboration and teamwork and taking care of the people that are with you. That is such an important skill. So thank you. We will go ahead and move on to item 1.3. Unfortunately, we have to do the business sometimes. So our first action item is our 277802 USDB enrichment program. This is a new role, and I will turn the time to either Jennifer Wadsworth or Darren Nilsson to open that up for us.
Thank you, Chair. I am actually hoping that we can maybe shift this to become our last action item. We're just cleaning up a few things on a proposed second draft. It's not quite there.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Let's move. Are there any objections from our board members if we move this? Let's see. Can we move it to before the educational benefit review policy? Superintendent Nilsson, do you think there'll be enough time if we do it just after the fiscal needs report?
Yeah, I think that's a great place for that to fit on the agenda. It's always hard to predict how much time it's going to take to move through these, but I think that's a safe place to ensure that you're able to address it during today's meeting.
All right, well then we will move. I'm not seeing any hands or objection to that change of agenda. So we'll just move that to a little bit later, and we'll move on to 1.4. This is the fiscal year 2027 USBE enrichment budget. Turn the time over to you, Superintendent Nilsson.
Okay, thank you. What this item is a result of is several months worth of work. It originates with USB staff curating and creating a budget that's formulated based on feedback that we collect from surveying our students and parents, our educators, teachers of the visually impaired across the state of Utah. So we start with the survey. We take those recommendations or the feedback we get from that. We take our previous experiences of providing enrichment opportunities, much like the ones you've heard discussed here today. There's a much wider swath of activities that are provided across the state of Utah throughout the year, and some of them in an ongoing format. We take those recommendations to the USDB Advisory Council. And this year, I believe that started in March that we took this to them. They review the recommendations that we provide, and then they deliberated several months on this, and then this is their proposal, what you see before you today, their proposal or recommendation to the State Board of Education related to the use of enrichment funds to provide these activities for our students going into FY28. Dr. Susan Patton also, her and her team are heavily involved in this and can address questions. And also, Susan, I'll pause and see if you have anything you'd like to add to this item.
Thank you. I do not, Superintendent Nielsen. I think that was a great introduction. So I'm happy, but I am happy to answer any questions if needed.
Thank you, Superintendent Nielsen. I'm noticing that there is two drafts in the backup. There is the advisory council, and then there is a staff recommendation. Can you talk about the differences, why there's two backups, and what the impact is between one or the other?
You bet you. So, yeah, I provided as backup the recommendations that USBE staff provided to the advisory council, and then the amended recommendation that came out of the advisory council. One of the reasons that this budget is coming to the board a month behind what the Schools for the Deaf enrichment budget is coming to the board on is deliberation and concerns about the use of these funds to pay for staff positions to provide these enrichment activities. So the staff recommendation includes a line for salaries that is $322,000. The advisory council recommendation kept that line item in there, but reduced that amount to $87,500. That was based on deliberations within the advisory council that felt that a certain percentage of funds would be the maximum amount spent on staff salaries. From a staff perspective, the recommendation that we provided that you're seeing in the backup represented a change from the prior month's recommendation, where we reduced the amount for specific salaries based on our calculations of how much time the individuals who the positions that these funds pay for spend on enrichment activities that are solely based on to providing services to our campus students versus statewide. So what you see here from the staff recommendation that went to advisory council, the $322,000 was slightly reduced amount for salaries. And again, it was an adjustment based on discussion and deliberations from the advisory council the previous month of wanting to I guess their primary concern from the advisory council is that they believe staff salary should come out of the operational budget for USDB. And that's the basis of their deliberation. And I think you probably, as board members, saw that in my summary that was provided for our advisory councils over the last couple of months. So that's the primary difference. Every other line item on the two budgets that you see in backup are the same and received full support, or at least there was no deliberation about any of those other line items that were in place. Another thing of note, as you talk about these budgets, we anticipate carry forward from the previous year's enrichment funds, and then we also anticipate some additional revenue, just like is very typical for permanent and also for school and trust programs. So it's likely the advisory council, supported by USDB staff, will have additional money that's available for FY28 that they'll bring forward in future recommendations.
Thank you for that explanation. That's very helpful. Just to call that out briefly. Member Davis.
Would the staff positions in this be solely to work on the enrichment activities?
Yes, Board Member Davis, the positions that this line item funds, those staff work solely and completely on providing enrichment activities across the state of Utah. So they provide services, some of those based for our campus students, but the vast majority of them spread across the state. There's a significant amount of travel that these individuals are willing to tolerate or to do in order to provide these services.
Thank you.
Have any other discussion to this item? Seeing no other hands, I'd ask for a motion.
I can do that.
Okay, go ahead, Member Longacre.
I make the motion that the committee approve the FY27 USB enrichment budget on the first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Thank you. The motion for the board is the committee approve the fiscal year 27 USB enrichment budget on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. Not seeing any discussion.
Chair Wood, can I ask a quick question? I can see that the motion with two pieces, with two budgets in the backup, the motion that we've provided to the board lacks specificity of which of those two budgets, the one that's approved by the advisory or advanced by the advisory council, or the one that staff provided. Oh. So whichever motion, whichever of those two the board wants to advance, we'll just need to be clear in the motion so that staff can implement that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Member Longacre, do you want to clarify which item in backup we're approving?
Sure. If someone will pull that up and I can.
So you have the advisory council recommended, and then you have the staff recommended. That one is staff. Do you want to show the advisory?
Yes, you tell me which one I'm mentioning.
That would be your motion.
Can you pull them both up? Let's do the staff one.
Okay. Do you want to restate your motion then? All right, Member Longacre, you want to restate your motion then?
I'm sorry, I was on mute and I stated it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I move that the committee approve the FY27 USB enrichment budget recommended by the staff on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. All right, so we have the clarified motion. Member Longacre moves that the committee approve the fiscal year USB enrichment budget recommended by staff on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. I'm not seeing any hands from our board members. Let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We will move to item 1.5, USDB fiscal needs. Superintendent Nelson and our finance, Deborah Jacobson.
Well, thank you, Chair. And I'm going to acknowledge, I believe Assistant Superintendent Deborah Jacobson is in a meeting right now that conflicts with this one with some of the legislative staff. So ask for her excuse for not being here. It's hard to believe that we're at the time of the year that we're already talking about potential fiscal requests for the for the 2027 legislative session. So we're still just letting the dust settle on some of the changes that have been implemented in the last legislative session. But it's the time that we're on. I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs from the document that I've prepared and submitted as backup using the template that the board members are familiar with, as this is the same template staff members at the USBE utilize. We're requesting $766,000 in funding to secure materials, equipment, and dedicated personnel required to fully remediate the 2025 audit findings and increase compliance levels with Utah State Board rules and state law, including school safety. These investments will stabilize USDB's financial, data, and risk management infrastructure without diverting critical resources away from direct K-12 classroom instruction. The request addresses critical operational compliance needs identified during the 2 recent audits and subsequent reduction in force actions of the Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind in 2025. The audits highlighted key inefficiencies requiring immediate rectification, specifically within data and financial management, strategic planning, policy development, and risk management. Over the past 8 months, the USDB leadership has utilized existing budgetary resources to address these gaps while evaluating the long-term impacts of staff reductions. This funding request is the direct result of that evaluation, targeting specific areas where additional fiscal support is required to successfully mitigate institutional risk and ensure sustainable, efficient operations moving forward. This language might be difficult for those of us who wear educational hat from an administrative hat. This is really central to our roles and responsibilities, overseeing the programs that the Schools for the Deaf and Blind have responsibility to put in place so that our students can achieve high levels of success in their lives. The backup, I have some confidential backup that was placed in the board or the civic clerk as well. The reason for that is you'll see in there, many of the high cost expenses related to this request are directly related to the school safety requirements that have been put into Utah state law. I thought it was important that the board see what those are. And there's also state law that prohibits, for the public's awareness, there are state laws that prohibit individuals from disclosing areas of might be considered weakness or vulnerabilities within a school setting related to school safety and security. So that's why the additional detail and backup is not brought forward in a more transparent or public-facing way at this time. Hopefully board members are able to see those and recognize where the specific dollars are being requested, what positions, what other materials. I'll use an example of one that has to do with risk mitigation and financial operations. One of the requests for an FTE is related to a staff ASL interpreter. We have realized increasing needs related to staff ASL interpretation. We have always have needs to provide interpretation, and when we're short having staff, our own staff to do that, we contract with agency ASL interpreters. The cost per hour for the agency ASL interpreters is more significant on our agency and on our taxpayers than it is if we have our own interpreters. And so that's an example of spending money to save money in terms of our financial management and reducing risk in that bucket. Another area that's related to student achievement that you'll see in the detailed backup for our fiscal request would be curriculum materials. It might surprise some people listening to this meeting in this discussion that an LEA, like the Schools for the Deaf and Blind, hasn't had and doesn't have a dedicated budget to curriculum and professional learning. It would be very unlikely or uncommon to find a highly successful school district in the country that doesn't have dedicated money to high quality curriculum materials that they purchase across their system and put in place with training and supports for their educators. It's an essential requirement for effective and high quality instruction. And that would be an example of another thing that you would see in here. And again, I would ask that we don't display this detail on the screen, as it includes some information about school safety that we need to keep confidential at this point. But that concludes my formal presentation about this request, but I expect there's probably a lot of questions, and the administration is happy to try to address those.
Member Davis.
Thank you. As I read through all of these things, I really appreciated the level of detail that we were able to see. Thank you for that. And I also reached out to Assistant Superintendent Deborah Jacobson, and since she's not here, she'd be embarrassed if I said this, but
when I asked, because I know she's been very carefully spending hours and hours following and tracking and looking at the numbers and the dollars to make sure that she can help all of us get to what right looks like in this space. And I said, I asked her, I said, are you on board with the USDB legislative funding request on the agenda today? And she said, yes, these are the critical needs we have identified over this past year. And there were two things I appreciated about that response. One is that this isn't like a superfluous pie in the sky request. This is taking a look at what are the critical needs right now for our students in the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind. But the second thing I really, really appreciated about this response is the word we. And it jumped off of the screen to me, because I think I'm really grateful that we're in a place where we've got USDB staff and we have USBE staff. And we're getting to a place where we are working together to determine what we can do to support and advocate and fulfill for our students. So I just wanted to say thank you for all of you, every member from USDB and USBE who's worked together to get to this point to launch us into the next legislative request as we continue to remediate the audit. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Davis. I do have a question. So can you update me, Superintendent Nelson, on where we're at with changes to staff increases? Are those, I know that they didn't take that out of code as they had originally planned with PEA and EAC, but it turned it into a study. Are our staff members getting the same workaround where we take the top 10 and we consolidate an average and then they'll get their normal increase? Is that part of the normal plan that would not need to be in this budget request? And also some questions about interpreters that are with our students. And there has research been done to compare what they make versus what you talked about, how bringing someone in would be so much more expensive than just having there. What about our interpreters that are directly with students?
Yeah, great. Those are a couple of good questions. The first one you asked, Chair Wood, was asked immediately as we've started to formulate this from both of our associate superintendents, is does the staff increase need to be included in this fiscal request? And Deborah Jacobson has confirmed with us that that's not the case. That process happens externally to this legislative fiscal request. And so that's moving forward separately and not dependent on board related action, because there's still a statutory language that directs staff to do that. In relationship to our student interpreters, there have been questions that have come forward, I guess over the last couple of months to my awareness, maybe before that, about equity of compensation for our interpreters that work directly with our students. I believe there's been a dialogue between Deborah Jacobson, the USBE Finance Office, and a member of the legislative staff, but the Capitol providing not a formal market analysis, but providing information related to that specific job category and position. We've, as administration, we're supportive of increases for staff positions, but always throw out a caution that increases in one staff position can sometimes cause incongruencies or discrepancies within your overall pay structure or schedule. And so we've recommended that market analysis on other positions at USBE be considered along with that. I don't know, Chairwood, what will come from the request that came from the member of the legislative staff requesting information about our staff interpreters. Generally, we're supportive of that. That's not included in this fiscal request. And that highlights another important part. Deborah Jacobson, in reflection on what Board Member Davis said, has been a even down to a more micro scale. Deborah Jacobson has made the time to meet with each of the directors, so the associate superintendents as well as the directors, and examine the needs and get to hear from those leaders across to the USDB about what their needs are. She's consulted with us. We've worked hand in hand, and that we is a very important part, and gives me confidence in the requests that we provided. However, if we were to bring in all of our directors, they would certainly say we still have unaddressed needs that are related to fiscal requests. I think most schools in the state would probably say the same thing, whether they're with the USDB or some other district. There'll always be needs that maybe are going unaddressed. This request, again, is really trying to pick out the high risk areas that we need to focus on and to address right away, given the gaps that have been identified through the audits and through our work on site over the last 8 to 12 months.
Thank you. That's very helpful. So I guess in the next month, if we move this forward to the full board, we should maybe have a conversation with the legislature to see if there's so we're not dual tracking requests if they're doing something and that they see where the risks are and what's necessary. So thank you for that. Member Davis, your follow up.
Yes. If I can get my camera to work. It's so glitchy today. Goodness. Well, maybe I shouldn't follow up if I know we need our screen on in this meeting when we comment. There it goes. My comments were similar a little bit to what Chair Wood just said, and I appreciate Superintendent Nielsen. With my comments about contacting Superintendent Jacobson, I just want to say that I know that the finances aren't always ideal, and I appreciate it being brought to our attention that there's still maybe things that we need to attend to. On the same hand, we're just trying so hard to balance because we've been under such scrutiny also with the legislature, and they will go to the finance team. And I'm just so grateful that we've been able to find a place where we can move forward together at this point. And all of those comments that have just been made help to flesh out the real realities that we're looking at. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, any board members, are there any other comments to this? Questions? Hopefully you've looked at the backup. It's very detailed, and I do also appreciate the level of detail we've been given when we speak to this as a board. If this moves forward and we prioritize this as one of our funding requests, we can speak to it so clearly, and that is so helpful when we meet with legislators and are able to speak with assurance that we know what the money is needed for, where it's going, why it's a priority. If there are no other comments, I'll seek a motion.
I'm happy to make that motion.
Thank you, Member Booth.
Is it possible to make it any larger on the screen? Thank you. I move that the committee forward the list of USDB fiscal needs to the Finance Committee.
Thank you. We have a motion that the committee forward the list of USDB fiscal needs to the Finance Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And maybe Member Davis, as we move that to the Finance Committee for August, maybe we have a month or two to follow up at interim and see if something's going, so we have a full vision before we move things to the board.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we are going to move now. Are we able to move back to 802? Is that ready to be looked at?
Yes.
All right, let's move back to item 1.3, USDB enrichment program. And is that draft in our backup?
Unfortunately, we were not able to upload it into the backup, so we have Andrea sharing her screen with us. I'm hoping that you're able to see it. I can also email the draft to all of the committee members if that would be helpful.
Okay, do you want to walk through what's different between this and the one that we've been looking at?
Yes, no problem. So first of all, thank you for your patience. I'm pretty sure we've got everything all cleaned up and ready for you now. So the original draft, getting feedback from some committee members and from superintendents, there was a lack of clarity around the USDB enrichment funds and the grants and the processes around that. We just wanted to be incredibly transparent with this new rule. Everything in here is going to be presented to our board brand new, so we wanted to make sure that we did it right. So the major changes you're going to see, Andrea, if you wouldn't mind scrolling down, we have gotten rid of essentially section 3, I believe it was. Please hold, I also have it on my screen. We've gotten rid of section 3 and we've added a brand new section 4 and 5. And what we did there, oh, sorry, it's not section 3. It's been a morning. We got rid of section 5, which was very briefly describing what the funding cycles would look like and who would be doing those funding cycles. And we've included a more detailed 5 and 6. Section 5 is specific to USDB enrichment grants. Section 6 is specific to the grant application review process and cycle. So we're hoping that by including more information, we're able to really clarify what that process looks like, what the funds can and cannot be used for. And hoping that everything is very transparent. So I would love questions and feedback.
Board members, do you, Member Davis?
I'm sorry that I'm talking so much today, but just a quick question. This is 802, right? Is this, yes. So I just had one question. I don't know in this new draft, because I didn't get a chance to really look through draft 2 as much as draft 1, but does this one still refer to families? And can someone give us a idea of why we would give a grant to a family versus a student and what the history has been on that?
Can answer in terms of the application process. So, and actually it looks like Superintendent Patton also has their hand up. So there is still reference to families in this rule. However, the reference is only to how the funds can be used to support families and students, not in terms of applicants. And I can let Superintendent Patton as well.
Chair, if I may.
Yeah, so do you want to kind of discuss the history of these grants and kind of where we're at and why we've made it more of a broad category as opposed to articulating each one that and how the changes, even this year, you've added another?
Sure. So based on feedback from our stakeholders, from families, from students, and from providers and various other stakeholders, years ago, I can't tell you the amount of years, but we decided we wanted to open up some funding from the enrichment funds to go directly to families and to students, and that would be through either LEAs or family requests. So we set up two different requests or models that we set up. One LEA request line item, and then we set up another family request line item. And families could request funding that would go to the advisory council to approve, and that would be for something like there were some. I'm just giving you an example, maybe a bike race that the family would be participating in, that they might need some extra funding for, just various things that the student would need, but it would be a family activity or a family event. The LEA line item was to allow LEAs to apply for money that would support students in something like a field trip. When I say a field trip, maybe an out-of-state travel or some kind of a travel program that the student would need some extra accommodations for. So that's where it stemmed from. It's now evolved. And so when Board Member Davis, when you ask about families, why would families need it? The families, it wouldn't be directly for the family, it would be directly for the student to be able to participate with the family in a community event or some other thing that the family would be participating in, but would maybe need some more funding for the student to provide accommodations. It has evolved now where we have 3 line items. We have a TVI, a teacher of the visually impaired line item, that TVIs across the state can, let's say that there is, and these are for every TVI across the state, so it doesn't matter what district they're serving in or they're serving in a USDB. It could be that there's 2 TVIs that want to get together and have an activity with their students in their districts or in their regional areas, and they can apply for those funds and then execute that activity with enrichment funds. So all of these requests have to come through an application process to USDB staff. And then we submit that to the advisory council, and I go over them in advisory council, and then the advisory council makes a motion either to pass that or not to pass. So they're the ones that are awarding that money or those monies. So does that answer your question, Board Member Davis?
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you. And partly why I asked too is because I just didn't want anyone from the public to be watching the meeting and go, why are we using educational dollars to give to a family? And, what is that going to be used for? And I really think that explanation was very helpful. Thank you.
And Chair, would you like me to explain anything else? Because I do know that there's a lot of different elements that could be confusing. So if you have anything else that you would like me to explain, I'm happy to do so.
I think we need to scroll to the top of the roll and kind of walk through it a little bit slower, just in case there's any questions. Oh, thank you. Jennifer Wadsworth said an email was just sent with this proposed draft too. So if you want to, board members, if you want to open up your email so you can look through it. But so if we look at some of the, let's look through the changes. So here, 25 through 27, we've done specific to providing a transparent and consistent process for evaluating these grants. And as I've sat through advisory, when we first started a couple of years ago, that there weren't really rubrics. We were kind of building it as we went. And so we looked at, we made to make sure that there's a very specific rubric. So all of them are being judged similarly and fairly as they move ahead. Do you want to get to the next page? And then this allows looks like 32 through 35 allows the USDB to create those evaluation tools so that they can, when they sit down, because the tools might be different. What would need right now, this is primarily a USBE grant system because the funding is not there for the deaf to have such a program. But if it ever came to a point where the deaf enrichment funds had increased to a point that they could have them, we want to make sure that there is an ability for tools and rubrics to compare for the need for that specific, whether it's the School for the Deaf or the School for the Blind. I'm going to scroll down. This is all the same language, it appears. And then stop. Okay, we're here relates to subcommittees. HB 448 allowed the creation of subcommittees within the advisory council. So this says that you could take those members of the council who represent the deaf and hard of hearing community, and they could look through and make recommendations using the funds from the School for the Deaf enrichment funds, and then a blind one for the blind community could make recommendations, and then those recommendations will come to the full advisory board for consideration. Okay, let's scroll down again. We've added in interscholastic sports. And this was one of our board member requests to talk about things that enrichment funds may not be used for, just some general guidance so that we know that it is specifically to provide these family-friendly environment activities, enhanced educational experiences for students who are blind or visually impaired or deaf and hard of hearing. Okay, go ahead. And then this walks us through that grant cycle. So there's some guardrails around how it will be, what the categories are, and then those rubrics that the USDB builds will enhance those rubrics. And then how the application will work. That USDB will establish caps per student per fiscal year. Does that need to be, can we stop there for a second? Does that need to be per entity? So is there a fiscal cap for, say, a district or an LEA for these? Do we need to change Superintendent Patton to align with practice?
Just in answer to your question, yes, there has not been a cap set for the TVI requests, but there is a cap set currently, which the Advisory Council may decide to increase this cap, but it's $750 per family request, and it's $1,875. I might be wrong on the $75, but I'm pretty sure it's right, per LEA request. So those are the caps per entity. But that would be also per student. So let's say the LEA wanted to ask for 2 students to participate in an activity that a larger district might have 2 students. That would be $1,875 per student, not necessarily per entity. That's how it is right now. Again, we don't have a cap. There's not been an amount set. This was set by a subcommittee of the Advisory Council, not USDB. And then the Advisory Council approved that. So I don't know if that answers your question. That just gives you some information.
I'm wondering if we need to amend lines 154 and 155 to better to broaden that, and maybe it's may rather than shall. And is it the Advisory Council? Because right now it says USDB in consultation with the Advisory Council shall establish a maximum fiscal cap per student per fiscal year for individual grants. I'm wondering if who would be the appropriate body establishing that? Should it be a may establish a maximum fiscal cap per entity per fiscal year for USDB enrichment grants? Would that be a better?
I would say yes, but not necessarily in my purview. But I would say yes, and USDB would always do that in consultation with the Advisory Council. It wouldn't be just USDB setting an amount arbitrarily. We would be looking at that with the subcommittee or the entire Advisory Council.
Okay, all right. Well, then I would move that we amend 154. I'll stop. Member Davis, do you have a comment to this?
I'll support the amendment. It just seems like somewhere in the documentation, I remember reading that the reason that it was there in the first place is that I don't know if it was a concern, but a warning was expressed to be careful not to, if there weren't caps, that a lot of money could go to certain areas, and then you might have places in rural areas, or travel might be more extensive or farther or whatever. And I support the amendment, but I think I'm just going to say publicly that still should be something that should be continuously considered.
And I think that could be a great place where the rubric, right, as they're comparing, applications coming in, making sure we've got a broad view of. So I'd move that line.
Certainly, thank you.
Would 155 be amended to read USDB in consultation with the advisory council may establish a maximum fiscal cap per entity. That way we're not determining which ones they, rather than a student. And then for USDB enrichment grants. Okay, yeah, so we'll read USDB in consultation with the advisory council may establish a maximum fiscal cap per entity per fiscal year for USDB enrichment grants. Is there any comments to this? Any concerns from board members? Do we like the may? I guess I would also ask that.
That's good.
Okay. All right, then we'll go ahead and vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. All right. Okay, let's go back and just make sure. Let's go back to the draft for a second. Okay, so then may not supplant, and that may not be awarded retrospect. Then we have the application review process. We've it'll be 3 cycles. This allows them to come in instead of every month them having to work through it. They'll be very specific, and then they can compare and keep track of what's gone on. Okay, scroll down. I don't know. Is there many changes after that? I don't think there are many changes from the original.
I don't believe there's anything too substantive action after this.
For that. Okay, so that kind of, hopefully that was helpful. Are there any questions to this? All right. You all are very quiet today. I will seek a motion.
I can make that motion. Okay, I make the motion that the committee approve R277-802 USDB Enrichment Program Draft 2 as amended on the first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Yes, but nobody can.
All right, the motion is the committee approve R277-802 USDB Enrichment Program Draft 2 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. All right, we'll continue. We are at 1 point. How are we doing here? We're doing good today. We're at 1.6, the educational benefit review policy. I know this was something recommended by the audit. So Superintendent Nelson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wood. Just to give a little bit of background, this was referenced in the OLAG audit. It's published in November of 2025. At that time, the State Board of Education, we provided a response to that recommendation. The specific recommendation was that the Utah Schools for the Deaf and the Blind should adopt an educational benefit review process to ensure a proper focus on students' educational achievement. Educational benefit review process might be a phrase that many people are unfamiliar with. It's generally considered a formal self-assessment designed to ensure that individual education programs at our school or any school they're implemented provide meaningful educational benefit. And so there's a process of looking at the previous 3 years worth of IEP goals and evidence of whether those goals are being met. So that recommendation came from that audit, and we concurred with that recommendation and have been taking steps to implement that. We're actually ahead of schedule on that report that we provided to that audit. We had scheduled, we had listed there that we would conduct trainings in June of 2026, develop and draft a policy and associated tools by August of 2026, and then conduct a pilot program by October of 2026. We've completed several rounds of training that the Utah State Board of Education staff came and provided to both our leadership teams for the Schools for the Deaf and our leadership team for the Schools for the Blind. We've in the process of developing tools associated with that, and then this policy is to put in place and institutionalize this practice at the Schools for the Deaf and Blind, and then over the coming months and years, we intend to get good at implementing these educational benefit review processes. So this is a new policy, and we present that to the committee for your consideration and further direction.
Member Davis.
Thank you. It sounds to me like these are audits. When I worked in a special ed department 20 years ago at a school district, we would go in and review IEP folders, but we called them audits. Is there any difference between what this is and what an auditor or a monitor would do when they go in and review the files?
Yeah,
it sounded like it when I read it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, let me take the first stab at it, and then Dr. Tanner may be able to jump in as they're moving down this road pretty well. The audit or compliance audits typically come in to make sure that signatures are in place as they should be, that the correct people attended the meetings as outlined by IDEA, that those procedural safeguards are in place, where this process is really focused at how much when we identify these targets, these learning targets, and we identify what specialized instruction needs to be put in place and these goals, at the end of the year, are we achieving? Is the student achieving that? Are the goals meaningful? And if so, or if they're not, then what are we going to do for the next planning cycle to make sure that we're providing meaningful and measurable improvements based on the targets that we've identified. But so that's my perspective on it. Dr. Tanner, you may have more to add.
I think you did a great job of explaining it. I would only add that it's actually we go through 3 years. We look at 3 years of IEPs to see if there's been an educational benefit for the student on their IEP goals for the past 3 years. But great job.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. When it talks about the golden thread, the logical documented connection between a student's evaluation, present levels, goals, services, and demonstrated progress, is that evaluation period? Is that at the end of each year or the 3-year cycle? When are you evaluating the cycle to make sure that it's actually doing what you wanted it to do, that it's achieving that benefit?
Yeah, Dr. Tanner, will you take that one, please?
Yes, now we look at it, we're setting up a schedule in which we're looking at each individual IEP that's happened over the past 3 years. So we would set up a cycle where we would look at it after each 3 year, like take a span of 3 years. But we are actually evaluating each year what the progress they made at that would, and then the compounding effect after 3 years.
That's helpful. Thank you. Board members, any questions related to this policy?
No.
No, none for me.
Okay, then I will take a motion if we have one.
I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, Vice Chair Booth.
I move that the committee approve the Educational Benefit Review Policy Draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Thank you. The motion is the committee approve the Educational Benefit Review Policy Draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. All right, the next one is our 1.7 Language and Communication Plan. Dr. Tanner or Nelson?
Let me give just a brief introduction to this. This item has come, this committee is familiar with because there were members of this committee that requested this be brought forward. Sarah Williams, who provided the public comment, has presented to the advisory council, and maybe as far back as November. I know she and others have been working diligently and persistently to initiate this process, considered legislative action, and then is now working through the Utah State Board of Education's process for doing this as well. I want to note that in the last standing committee meeting, committed to get as many materials related to those discussions that have taken place in as backup. Once this agenda item was made public, Sarah reached out to me and I had inadvertently uploaded 2 documents that weren't the most recent versions. So in the backup, just for everyone's awareness, document titled Model Plan for March 2026. I uploaded that since this item became public, and also the frequently asked questions for March 2026. Those are both documents that I'm grateful for Sarah pointing out were more current than the ones we had uploaded from previous discussions. So just want to note that. And then I know Dr. Tanner has also been engaged in discussions around this topic, and I'll turn the time over to her.
Yes. I want to, as we move through this process, and I've had many meetings with Sarah and others, and been participating in different meetings with the outreach teachers, and there is question marks in some people's minds as to the implementation of these language and communication plans. And so one of the things that I thought that would be appropriate, maybe we could offer, is maybe the School for the Deaf, and maybe some other districts or charter schools that are interested could do a pilot program to see the effectiveness of this and maybe alleviate some of those concerns or resolve any concerns that may be presented. So that was the discussion that we were thinking would be appropriate and maybe a nice way forward to see and resolve any of the outlying concerns that are existing out there.
I know that this was a board member request to have this on our agenda basically after we'd received the input and comments. And I know Member Davis has attended a couple of meetings regarding this, so I hope she'll speak up to that. I see Superintendent Voorhees has a comment, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as we move forward, board members. But go ahead, Superintendent Voorhees.
Thank you. Chair Wood, Leah Voorhees, Deputy Superintendent USBE. Last month, the board asked me to do a couple specific things related to this upcoming agenda item. And one was that I talked to special education directors in districts and charter schools about language and communication plans. We haven't had a conversation, as I told you last month. We wouldn't have a meeting again until the fall. But I did send out the overview document, the model language and communication plan, and a link to the video that gave an overview, and created a survey that special education directors could respond to. So far, we've had 33 responses, not all from special education directors, but from about 12, 15 directors, it looks like, and then other special education administrators in LEAs and staff, LEA staff. And the majority of them actually favored doing a pilot. They asked for very specific training from the USBE if a pilot did happen. They expressed software concerns, like updating their IEP software programs and needing a runway to be able to do that. But they also wanted to articulate, several individuals said they would prefer not to have a language and communication plan required for several reasons. But one, which I had not brought up to you previously, was that even for students that have specific behavioral needs and behavior support needs, behavior intervention plans are not required. The IEP team determines if it's appropriate. And this may be a different situation as in public comment, Sarah Williams articulated that this is more about access and ensuring that students really have that. But I hadn't brought that particular concern up last month, so I wanted to make that explicit. We have about 160 LEAs, so there's plenty of time for more responses from special education directors, which I'll happily share. But I just wanted to give you that overview since you asked specifically for it last month. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Member Davis.
My question is, and I want to thank Dr. Tanner, Assistant Superintendent Tanner, because I do love the idea of a pilot. My question is, do we move to begin a pilot or flesh out a pilot first, or do we flesh out these materials are samples from what other states have done? Do we need to flesh that out first? Or will that come as the pilot ensues? And the reason I ask this question is, if I understood from Sarah, the biggest reason for these plans is for the general educator and students and the interaction between the student with hearing loss or deafness and the another peer. So I'm wondering if these are the materials that we want to use for our pilot. When I look at the model from, where was it from? Like somewhere Midwest or something? Can't remember. But when I read the model, I was trying to just put my general educator hat on. And I'll be honest, it's just too big, too many, just so many words. I mean, these people are drowning. What they need is a section in an IEP that tells them, do I need to wear the traveling mic or not? And what are the steps I must take to help this student achieve the most success possible? I don't think that they need all that other stuff in the plan. And I honestly think it will, when I read
the few states that we called to interview, I think Sarah called to interview, it seemed like the plans were good in theory, but weren't being implemented well. And it's hard enough for LEAs to make sure that the IEP is implemented with fidelity. But again, because elementary is a little easier, but in secondary, these teachers sometimes have 200 students, and trying to get all the pieces of everybody's plans, you have to really stay on it and reiterate the importance that it must be implemented with fidelity. And I fear the expansiveness of this particular model plan would make it so it would be implemented with less fidelity. So my question is twofold. One, do we just move to work on starting or fleshing out a pilot? Or two, do we work on fleshing out materials and then start a pilot? Maybe materials that are a bit more streamlined so that we can increase their efficacy and their use.
Thank you. Dr. Tanner, do you have a response to this?
I do. Thank you so much, Board Member Davis, for articulating some of the concerns that many people have expressed about the length and the time and the implementation of the language and communication plans. So I have also, in working with Sarah Williams, she has done an extensive amount of research and homework. It's impressive. She's contacted many other states. She's talked to them. She's talked about their implementation. And from that, she has crafted this form, which she has been sharing out as part of the discussions. And so we've been looking at it. I believe the answer to your question is that as we do a pilot, we can flesh out those forms and make them so they're easily consumed by the people that will be using them, that they could be implemented with fidelity. I think that would be part of the pilot. So I would advocate starting with the tools that Sarah Williams has presented. And then as we do that, we would work in partnership with everyone to fine tune those tools to make sure they're more appropriate for and addressing the concerns that people have. So that would be my way forward, is taking the materials that we have here that have been developed, doing a pilot, see how they're working, altering or adapting the process and the tool as we move along. I hope that addressed your question.
Thank you. Any follow-up, Member Davis?
Yes, I just would ask, I know you said this in the beginning and I had missed, you said USDB and I think another LEA, so I'm just wondering what the scope would be. And I'd like to keep the scope relatively small to start so that we can create solid ground to move forward. I don't want to do things that aren't going to be successful. So I want to start small and build. And then I read the different states, and Florida just kind of started out creating their own model forms and things. So I just want to reiterate that yes, I love your thought, Superintendent Tanner, about using the materials that have been provided as a launching point. But just like Florida, they made their own model. I would prefer to make our own that's much more streamlined and user-friendly. Thank you, especially for general educators.
And if I may answer the question that she posed at the beginning.
Yes, please.
Yes. So what I was recommending is that USDB, because I represent the School for the Deaf, I thought I could say we're willing to partner and do a pilot, but there may also be other districts. I do understand that Davis District and there's some other district, Cache District, may be interested, and there may be others that may be interested in doing a small pilot. So I just thought leaving it open so that they can make their choices and have their autonomy to join or not. That was the thought.
May I follow up?
Yes.
I like that. And it will sound like I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth, but while I think we should keep it small, I do think in addition to USDB, we do need to have some, it doesn't have to be the whole Davis district, but maybe a couple of schools or however they want to participate in the pilot so that we can see how this impacts the interaction with general education experiences. And so I appreciate the way you're thinking about that and allowing for ownership and people to kind of opt in. And we may need to nudge a couple or ask if, but it sounds like a couple already have said they want to participate. So I think that's a great idea. I don't know what this looks like in a motion, Chair, or if we have any draft motion language. Maybe I missed it in the materials.
We do have a draft for you to look at and see what you think.
And I don't need to make it either. I'm happy to, or someone else can. I've just happened to fall into this space happily if it will help students.
Do you want to see if that would work for, I know I ask you just because you have attended, you knew some legislative work that was being done on this. You've really done the deep dive and I appreciate that.
I like this motion language, and I'm looking for a way to incorporate the development of materials into it as well. How about before the words language and communication plan, it could read that the committee recommend that the board approve a voluntary LEA pilot implementation of developing and implementing a language and communication plan.
What about requesting feedback on the back end as well? Or is that already worked in or assumed?
Yes, I like that. And after developing, can we put model materials?
Would that approve a voluntary LEA plan for developing model materials and implementing? I know that's wordsmithing, but the of developing. And then do you want a report made at the end of the pilot? Are we?
Member Brenton was asking at the end for feedback or an assessment or something of that nature. Including evaluation tools from participants. Maybe, is that kind of what you're thinking, Joanne?
Yes, I was thinking, because I like the idea of streamlining it and making it simpler. So I would just want to know what those who do the pilot, what they say. Like, would they like it the way it is? Would they like to see it included in IEPs just as a section?
How about if we say including a feedback and evaluation component from participants?
That's good.
This is Deputy Voorhees. Member Davis, can you tell me where you wanted that again?
Right where you were typing it. You did great. It was including a feedback and evaluation component from participants.
Oh, okay. That's the piece I missed. Thank you.
All right. Does that look good?
We just need a C in that participants. There we go. And thank you, Dr. Voorhees, for your patience with us. And thank you, Member Brenton, for your help. And thank you, Chair Wood, for the flexibility for us to work on this together. Sometimes it takes a village.
I love when the committee comes together and does good work. It makes me feel like we're vetting the process better when we're working together. So we have a motion that the committee recommend the board approve a voluntary LEA pilot for developing model materials and implementing a language and communication plan as a component in individual education programs for deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing students, including a feedback and evaluation component from participants. Are there any comments to this?
Just to be thorough, I never actually I kind of started to make the motion and then we got involved in some revising. So I'm fine not to make it. You've just stated it, but so nobody goes back and says the motion wasn't actually made, do I need to go back and restate it also?
If you'd like to, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll just do it quickly and then we'll assume that you have already put it on the floor. But I move that the committee recommend that the board approve a voluntary LEA pilot for developing model materials and implementing a language and communication plan as a component in individual education programs, IEPs, for deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing students, including a feedback and evaluation component from participants.
Thank you. Any comments to this? Okay, I'm not seeing any. We'll move ahead with the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. All right, we have finished our policy work. We are going to turn the time to our Schools for the Deaf and Schools for the Blind to give us any updates for the month, and then we will conclude with an advisory council report. So turn the time over to our superintendencies.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wood. I'm going to take just a few minutes to start out and give an update on another item that we've been working on. And then Susan Patton had to leave and she's made arrangements for Kate Borg, one of our directors for the elementary blind program, to speak on her behalf, if that's acceptable and okay from you. We've talked a little bit today, or maybe a lot, about these gaps that were identified through a number of audits that occurred over the last year for the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind. Another item that's related to the OLAG audit, the recommendation, and I'll just read that here and then kind of give you an overview. We've talked briefly about this in other updates, but that USDB can improve its strategic planning to focus on better academic achievement. We concurred with that recommendation. And a subcomponent of that is included. The Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind should identify benchmarks and report relevant comparisons of its assessment data in its annual reports to support policymaking and strategic planning at all levels. This is the work that I've mentioned before that is slow, but really important to getting ourselves in a place where we're maximizing our instructional impact on our students. Over the next 2 days, so beginning tomorrow and then on Thursday, we'll have a number of our educators, including our leadership team, will be meeting at the OAC campus, where we'll be going through an assessment audit of our assessment practices, the Schools for the Deaf and the Schools for the Blind. Part of that work, which we've been preparing for a number of months, I think really in January of this year is when we started, we engaged with the USBE's Technical Assistance Committee. So again, we see the word we, where we come together and we're working, staff at the USDB and staff at USBE, working together in ways that maybe we haven't, at least for a long time. And so part of this assessment audit will be examining every assessment that students in either of our schools experience. We'll be looking for areas where assessments are either overlapping and we have duplication, and can look for areas where we can reduce assessment impacts on our students, or, and maybe more importantly, where we identify areas that are important for us, things that are important for us to measure, but we don't have a measurement tool in place to do that. In the work up to the engagement we're going to have tomorrow and on Thursday, we've been identifying key benchmarks for the students that we serve, in addition to what the state legislature and the State Board of Education has identified with our end of course assessments related to the core standards. As you're all aware, the Schools for the Deaf and Blind, the students that we're serving have additional needs that are really important, high priority areas for us to provide instructional support around, direct instruction to and instructional support around, that is, and making sure that we also have benchmarks identified, and we're including that information in our reports to the board, to the legislature, and that we use those to evaluate programs and the resources that we're spending to see whether whether we're doing that in a way that is bringing about changes in achievement and performance for our students and successes for their families. So that's happening tomorrow and Thursday. It's again exciting work for those of us in the leadership positions here at the Schools for the Deaf and Blind, and we expect it's a key step forward as we continue to improve our strategic planning at the Schools for the Deaf and Blind. But I want to make sure you're aware of those opportunities. Any of you are welcome to, if you're in Mill Creek tomorrow or Thursday morning and want to join us, just let us know and we'll bring you in on that process. So if it's okay, Chair Wood, I would turn the time over to Kate Borg, again, our director of the blind elementary programs for the Schools for the Deaf and Blind, who'll provide an update on Schools for the Deaf and Blind, and then subsequent to that, Dr. Tanner will provide an update on our Schools for the Deaf.
Absolutely, thank you.
Good morning. I was going to say I'm excited to get to share a few things, but no, I'm mostly just nervous. I am grateful for the chance just to share a little bit about what has been happening at the School for the Blind. Big thank you to Jacqueline Phillips, who is Susan's executive secretary or executive assistant, for preparing these slides that I'm going to share. Am I able to share my screen? It looks like I am. All right. There we go. So I just want to share just a few awesome stories from our deafblind program, also from our Bridges program, and then as well as the deafblind services department. So on this first slide on the left, you'll see a photo of a baby that was born at 26 weeks. Her name is Michaela. When she was born, she weighed less than 2 pounds. And on the picture, you can see her in the NICU. And then it looks like a caregiver's hand on her, and the hand is about the same size as the baby. And then on the right is a photo of Michaela today. And she is wearing the cutest little Easter outfit with bunny ears on her head and cute little yellow footy pajamas. And there's a little stuffed duck next to her on a blanket. And so as I mentioned, Michaela was born at 26 weeks. She weighed less than 2 pounds, and she spent 3 months in the NICU. She was diagnosed with retinopathy of prematurity. After her discharge, the family began working with early intervention specialists, including a teacher from the parent-infant program for the blind and visually impaired. And the family, were coached with specific tools and strategies to support her visual development at home. And through these targeted interventions, she has successfully closed her developmental gaps and is now reaching all age-appropriate milestones alongside her peers. And so this is just a wonderful snapshot into the great work that our PIP providers do across the state. And so there are many stories like Michaela's, but what a cutie to get to highlight today. Next, just want to highlight some activities from the Bridges School. They had their expanded core focus travel program where they went to the Maryland School for the Blind, spent some time there, and then were able to also visit Washington, D.C. So there are 4 students, 2 mentors, and then 3 teachers that all traveled. Students spent about 6 weeks of targeted instruction to prepare for the travel program. They spent, as I mentioned, a day in Washington, D.C. They attended classes and some social activities at the Maryland School for the Blind, and then had a history day in Baltimore. So on the right of this very colorful slide, we have a picture of some of the group that traveled. So there are some students, a couple of our mentors, and a staff member. And in the background is the Washington Monument. So this is an outdoor picture or photo at the Washington Monument with the group. And it says new experiences, new connections, and lasting impact. And then we have a highlight from Deafblind Services where they had a literacy day at the zoo. And there are some 4 really fun photos from this very fun day. On the top left of this photo array, we have a little guy wearing the cutest little cap. And it looks like maybe his mother, but a caregiver working with him. He's holding a Sharpie, and it looks like they are about to do a writing activity. To the right of that photo there at the top right corner, we have another student who is sitting in her chair. It looks like maybe using an AAC device, an augmentative communication device, with her caregiver. And there are art supplies on the table in front of them. So it looks like they are about to do an art activity. On the bottom left, we have a photo of a family, including their deafblind student, who are standing outside at the statue of a lion with his, looks like maybe his cub. And everybody in the photo is smiling. And then the last photo at the bottom right corner, we have a student who has her mouth open, and she is has bubbles that are flying around her. And so Deafblind Services hosted this literacy activity at the Utah Hochul Zoo for students and families. They had access to hands-on animal kits that had a picture, a tactile item, and then a QR code that had animal sounds. They had an opportunity to create experience books. I think that's what's happening in this top right photo with the art supply. So after exploring the zoo, families made books together to remember their day. I don't know if you were all familiar with experience books, but this is such a great tool and a great strategy for students to build literacy skills based on the experiences that they're having. So a great example might be, if we take a walk outside, maybe we gather some leaves that we touched, or maybe a stick that we found, but something that we can put into a book, that we can read this book and remember the experience that we had. And then families had the opportunity to connect with each other. It was a fun, meaningful experience for everyone. We know that the time that families can spend together to connect is so valuable for them. And at the bottom of the slide, we have some quotes from families. The first one says, "We've loved this activity. Lydia," who is the student playing with the bubbles, Lydia had much better access to experience the sounds and texture of each animal exhibit. I love that the students are able to experience something that might usually be pretty inaccessible in a very accessible way. This middle quote says, "I love that the whole family had fun and could engage with the interactive books we made. It was also wonderful to interact with other families." And then finally, both myself and my child loved the tactile objects to interact with while visiting the animals. And again, just an opportunity for students who may not always be able to access an activity like the zoo to have that access is really, really important. And then finally, again, thank you to the work of our School for the Blind admin team, and especially Jacqueline. We have launched a USB newsletter. Will come out once a month on the third week, there we go, during the school year. So here is an issue on the left. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But there are some different photos of students, some of the photos from the deafblind activity. If you look at the issue from May, you'll also see yours truly climbing a jungle gym. I got challenged by a student to see who could get to the top and the bottom the quickest, and he won. But I would like to say that I did it, and I didn't fall off. But thank you so much for letting me just share a few things from the School for the Blind. Appreciate the time to be here today.
Thank you. Dr. Tanner?
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about the deaf school. I wanted to express some of the things that have been going on specifically at the school and acknowledge our participation in all that Superintendent Nielsen described earlier about the assessment audit. That takes a lot of time from our staff members, and they are anxiously engaged in making that a successful outcome for us and something that will benefit the school. We are also involved in what's called the Apple program, as you are probably aware. There is a lack of opportunities to participate in get deaf education, higher ed professionals in the state of Utah. We have one program, that's the University of Utah's program, which is doing what it can to continue to survive in this environment. And so we need to get graduates to help support and have quality teachers in our school. So we have developed and worked in concert with the Board of Education to get the Deaf Ed Apple program off the ground. And one specifically, now we're trying to get one specifically for the School for the Deaf that we produce here. So we've been working with USBE staff to help make sure that we're following all the components of that. And it probably likely would take a heavy lift from the School for the Deaf, because the other agency or the other higher ed institution that's interested that could help us, they have a cap on some of the classes that they can offer at a limited cost until you become a matriculated student. We are also going to take full advantage of the special education courses that are offered through USBE. So that's important. But there are many, that's why we have a Deaf Ed Apple. There are many that are very specific to deaf education, like the psychology of deafness, educational audiology. And those are things that we may have to do on our part, which may require some discussion and thoughts about stipends for people at our agency to be able to do that. And so that's forthcoming. We're also working on an induction program. And as we talked about in the board meeting, that has a small monetary value, but a real big bang for the buck. We're hoping to offer some more time for the new hires to be able to engage and learn more about the school. We haven't had that in the past. And so that's something we had last year through the Master Teaching Grant, which provided us an opportunity to present, create materials and create a week-long list of activities to pay for mentors throughout the school year. We may be able to do an induction program this year, which be limited in comparison to what we did last year, but certainly very important. We're thinking about a $15,000 price tag. That isn't like a line item. That is for each individual budget that would add a new teacher that would add a cost to the agency. So it's an estimate because throughout the summer, we have teachers come and go. Even though they've said, a lot of them have committed to coming back, there's been changes. And some of them, for example, that we had our school, a position open this entire year for a school psychologist. I'm so grateful to report that we have hired someone to take over that position starting in the fall, that we're excited about that. We just recently had an audiologist vacate their position. So we'll be seeking a replacement for that position into the fall. We're hopeful that we can find someone for that. We have an open position at KBS for a teaching position, and I'm pleased that we have 2 qualified applicants for that. That's a boon. We have an open position at the Elizabeth DeLong School. That one, we haven't had any applicants. We have one that we've hired that will probably be on an associate's license, another one that will have a full professional license, and then we have this vacant position right now with no applicants. So we're hoping we get some applicants for that one. We did fill 2 of our vacated positions that were in the outreach. And so that was a pleasure to get those hired early. That's usually one of the hardest positions we have. We found that a lot of the people that we've hired recently have been within the state. There are other teachers of the deaf and other working in other positions throughout the state that decided they wanted to come work for us. So that's good. The other thing that we are engaged in right now, we're getting prepared for the JMS Springboard. JMS is was designated as a springboard school, and so we're actively involved in the process. We have a content area expert that leads and guides school improvement, and we're really thrilled that one of the groups that applied had the expertise of deaf and hard of hearing. I had really grave concerns that someone would come in who didn't have that background or expertise, and it would be really hard to guide our improvement efforts if they don't understand the struggles that we have as schools for the deaf, and specifically the needs and the struggles that students have that are deaf and hard of hearing, related to curriculum, related to communication access, and related to language and communication and assessment and how that interplays. So all of that, we're super excited about that piece. And we're also involved in creating the budgets for preparations for the next year. So we have the budgets that will be allocated, and the financial department takes care of allocating that. But we have to track it. We have to make sure we're staying in alignment with the budget. So we make sure we have budget trackers so that we can align and reconcile monthly with the business office and make sure that what we're saying we have spent is what they're accounting for. And often we are preparing in advance, and our budgets usually have showed our expenditures before it hits their side of things. So that's the important part of our part in the budget planning. Finally, I would like to talk about summer camps. We have all 38 summer camps, less than we've had in the past, because they were concerned we wouldn't have the budget this year. So that kind of delayed some people putting forward than they had in the past. We've had about 48. So we're about down 10, but not too bad. And we are running those camps. I'm very grateful to Jonathan Hegelson. Anytime you hear about a summer camp, an extracurricular activity, or an athletic activity, Jonathan Hegelson is involved in that and making sure those are implemented with fidelity and communicating with all the stakeholders involved in those things. And I'm really grateful for his work. The other people that I think that we need to thank is right now our facilities team is doing a great job getting our facilities cleaned up, ready for the next year, moving things around, taking care of the grass and grounds work, and they do a great job of that. And I'm really thankful to the IT team, who also is doing a refresh, and they're making sure that all the laptops, the iPads that the students use throughout the year are ready to be dispersed for next year, and that takes a great deal of work. And of course, our Educational Resource Center, the ERC, they're doing a great job they've gathered up all the books, and now they're getting ready to get the textbooks sent out. We're hopeful that we can get the curriculum budget set where we would like it to be, so that we can purchase all the curriculums that we need for our students. That will start July 1st as the new budget cycle starts. And so it'll be good to know what we can purchase as far as curriculum. We learned last year that there are some pieces of the curriculum you can't cut because you have electronic access. That is a year-to-year thing. And so that last year we learned, as we went through the exercise of reducing budgets, that was a very needed budget that we couldn't reduce down too much. And we've got also great needs in some of our curriculum that needs to be updated. So with that, I hope you all have a fun summer and you guys get to have some rest and relaxation over the summer. We'll send out another USD newsletter probably in August as we get ready for the new school year, so that you can see what we've done over the summer and how those summer camps have gone on, and have some context for the upcoming school year. So that is all I have for my report. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Board members, any questions or comments on either report? Thank you, Kate, for being here. Appreciate your time and sharing with us what's going there. I'm not seeing any hands. All right, and then we will conclude with the advisory report. Superintendent Nielsen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wood. I'll give a brief, probably 5-minute report here. I'm going to start out, though, by just making note that this last legislative session, the Advisory Council, which was previously established under direct authority of the State Board of Education, has been moved into State Code. So 53E8206 establishes the role and the responsibilities and the makeup of the Advisory Council, which I'm privileged to meet with once a month, at least 10 times per year. And I'm so grateful for these individuals who provide their time and energy to us on behalf of the Board of Education as they represent members of our community, that they can bring perspectives that some of us lack. But the Advisory Council has 4 purposes, and I'll just read those. Number 1 is make recommendations to the State Board regarding issues related to the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind. B, I shouldn't do 1, 2, 3, 4 because it's not a priority, but so item B, serve as a school community council for the Schools for the Deaf and Blind. C, consult regarding entrance policies and procedures described in a state code. That's a new responsibility that's been introduced to them through House Bill 448. And then finally, make recommendations regarding the educational enrichment programs for the deaf and hard of hearing students and our blind visually impaired students. In the time that I've been here in an interim and also now in a former role of superintendent, the vast majority of time that the Advisory Council has been together has been spent on that one item around the enrichment program. And so I'm looking forward to the board role that you worked on earlier this morning. Looking forward to implementing that to support the Advisory Council in that responsibility, but also allowing them time, creating structure in their limited time together, that we can engage them with these other 2 particularly recommendations regarding issues, and then these entrance policies. So they met on May 28th, most recently, and again to bring forward and advance the USBE Enrichment Fund request. Then they spent a significant amount of time reviewing individual grant requests that come in. And I do want to acknowledge, I really am appreciative of how detailed their attention is to these individual requests. They're not a rubber stamp group. When those requests come in, it's often that they get sent back to the person who submitted them to address questions or concerns that the Advisory Council has. So they perform a vital check and balance, I believe. I've witnessed that during the time that I've been there. We did get an opportunity to have students, much like you saw today, come and provide a report to them on activities that they had previously made recommendations around, these enrichment activities, and that was very rewarding. I want to just highlight, though, that this is the time of year when terms expire. The Advisory Council is made up of up to 10 voting members that the board can appoint. And this time of year, on a rotating schedule, positions become vacant. We've got a few positions that have been vacant for some time. So I'm just going to, in a public setting, list these positions. We've been recruiting interested volunteers to submit applications for these. We'll continue to do so. And some of these positions, the individual who's in them now will resubmit an application. But we're looking for a person who is deaf or hard of hearing. These are for voting members on the Advisory Council. We're looking for 2 individuals who are deaf-blind or parents of a deaf-blind child. We're looking for a parent of a deaf child, a person with interest or knowledge of deaf-blind or deaf-blind voting, and then finally a USDB educator of the blind. So we're in the process of recruiting interested applicants for those positions, and we hope that if there's those who are listening to this meeting who are interested, reach out directly to Tammy Flint here. You can find her contact information on our landing page, or you can contact me and we'll provide you directions into how to submit your application materials, and we'll get those before the board in an upcoming executive session for their consideration of appointment. But I'm also grateful, in addition, for the Advisory Council. I don't know that I have recently expressed my appreciation publicly for our 2 associate superintendents, Dr. Tanner and Susan Patton. I think it's clear that their interactions with the board and with staff and community members, their passion and their commitment and the expertise that they have in the fields that they work. I'm grateful for those skills and attributes they bring, but also their collaboration, interest and abilities as we work to identify areas where the Schools for the Deaf and the Schools for the Blind can have overlapping interests and work in a collaborative environment versus areas where where they just have to focus on specific needs for their students. But grateful for them and the opportunity that I have to work with such wonderful people and on behalf of such wonderful children spread across our state. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Superintendent Nelson. I do have to do a shout out for our advisory council chair. When members of the committee went and visited DSBVI, we got to tour his woodworking shop. And just an inspirational story there of someone who lost their sight and gained a new hobby and has now sharing that talent and expertise with other blind and visually impaired community members as they provide services there. So we have amazing people doing great things in our communities and in our state on behalf of our students. So just a shout out to him if any of you have not. For the public, it's a great opportunity to visit there and see what's going on. I have no other items on our agenda. Do we have any closing thoughts from any of our board members? And if not, I'll seek a final agenda or a final action.
I move that we adjourn with a word of gratitude for all of the work of Superintendent Nielsen and his staff and our associate superintendents. This is a great team and good things are happening for our students. It's very heartening to be a part of this ongoing journey together. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Booth. That's non-debatable, and we'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair Wood.
Thank you so much.